I stood there in the dingy kitchen of our rundown house on my 25th birthday, scrubbing the greasy plates from breakfast that no one had bothered to wish me well for. The foster family I'd been stuck with since I was 5 years old treated me like I didn't exist, or worse, like I was just their free labor. Marlene, my foster mother, hovered over me with her usual scowl, her arms crossed tight across her chest as if guarding something precious that I'd never get a piece of. "Watch it, Alara! You're spilling water everywhere again," Marlene snapped, her voice sharp like a knife edge. She leaned in closer, her breath hot on my neck. "You're as useless as ever. I don't know why we even bothered keeping you around after all these years. You think you're entitled to anything here. We took you in when no one else wanted some orphan. Brat off the streets." Welcome to Martha's Stories. I share new life stories here every day, and I'd really appreciate it if you hit subscribe and liked my video. Drop a comment down below telling me where you're watching from and what time it is for you, right? Now, I read every single comment and it helps me to know I'm not alone in this. I bit my lip hard, trying not to let the tears show as I wiped the counter furiously. The words stung deep, reminding me of every birthday that passed like this, forgotten, dismissed. Just another day to work harder? I'd been their maid, their errand runner, their punching bag for emotional blows since the day they signed those papers, claiming they were doing me a favor. But today, on what should have been a milestone, it hit harder than usual. "You hear me, girl," Marlene continued, grabbing the sponge from my hand and tossing it into the sink with a wet slap. "If it weren't for us, you'd be out there begging. Lucky we didn't dump you back at the orphanage when you turned 18. But no, we kept feeding you, clothing you out of the goodness of our hearts." Her laugh was bitter, echoing off the peeling wallpaper. I nodded silently, my hands trembling as I picked up another dish. Inside, the isolation clawed at me. The years of being told I had no real family, no roots, no worth. It built up like a storm, and I wondered how much more I could take before something broke. The front door creaked open then, and in came Kyle and Fiona, my foster siblings, dropping their bags on the floor without a care. Kyle, 23 and always the golden boy, smirked at me. "Still slaving away in here, Alara? Good, because I need my laundry done by tonight." Fiona, 21 and spoiled rotten, flipped her hair and added, "Yeah, and make sure you iron my dress properly this time. Last time it was all wrinkled, like you don't even try." I forced a weak smile, stacking the clean plates. "Sure, I'll get to it right after this." Marlene chuckled, patting Fiona on the back. "See, kids? That's why we keep her around. Free help. Don't know what she'd do without us." The casual cruelty in their words twisted something inside me. I'd overheard whispers before about how they got money from the state for fostering me, but spent it on themselves while I got hand-me-downs and leftovers. Today, though, it felt like the final straw, amplifying the loneliness that had been my constant companion. As I rinsed the last fork, Marlene's phone buzzed on the counter. She glanced at it dismissively. "Probably another bill. Alara, you better not have used up all the hot water again." "I didn't," I murmured, but she wasn't listening. The ache in my chest grew, the humiliation of being reduced to this on my own birthday pushing me to the edge. Little did they know, or I even suspect, that everything was about to change in ways none of us could imagine. But for now, I kept scrubbing, the soapy water blurring with the tears I wouldn't let fall. The weight of 2 decades pressed down, endless chores, constant belittling, the void where a real family should be. It was all I'd known, this supposed charity that felt more like chains. Kyle grabbed a soda from the fridge, popping it open loudly. "Hey, Marlene, you think we should celebrate something today? Oh wait, it's just Alara's birthday. Who cares, right?" They all laughed, and I turned away, gripping the edge of the sink. The injustice burned, setting the stage for what was coming, even if I didn't see it yet. The afternoon sun slanted through the grimy windows, turning the living room into a hazy trap of dust motes and stale cigarette smoke from Marlene's. Habit. I lingered in the kitchen doorway for a moment after that morning's sting, my hands still raw from the dish soap, watching Kyle and Fiona sprawl across the sagging couch like they owned the world. Kyle, at 23, had his feet propped on the scarred coffee table, thumbing through his phone, while Fiona, 21 and always primped, painted her nails without a care. The remnants of my ignored birthday hung in the air like an unspoken joke, and I felt that knot in my stomach tighten from Marlene's earlier barbs. I wiped my palms on my faded jeans, trying to shake off the humiliation, but it clung like the dampness in this rundown house. "Alara, don't just stand there gawking," Kyle said, not bothering to look up. "I'm starving. Run to the corner store and grab some chips, barbecue flavor, and a couple six-packs of soda. The good stuff, not that off-brand crap." Fiona glanced over, blowing on her wet polish. "And while you're at it, pick up my dry cleaning from that place on Elm Street. I dropped it off yesterday. Make sure they didn't screw it up last time there was a spot they missed." I shifted my weight, the worn floorboards creaking under me. "It's my birthday today. Maybe I could." Kyle snorted, finally meeting my eyes with that smug grin. "Oh, right, your big day. Like that changes anything. Come on, we've got things to do. You're not doing much else, are you?" Fiona rolled her eyes. "Yeah, seriously. It's not like you're out celebrating with friends or whatever. Just go already." Marlene shuffled in from the hall, her slippers slapping against the linoleum, carrying a stack of mail she'd probably ignore until bills piled up. She caught the tail end and nodded at them. "Listen to your siblings, Alara. We've carried you long enough in this house. All the food, the roof, we've done plenty over the years. Don't make it harder than it needs to be." "Okay." Her words landed like pebbles in my gut, vague reminders of how they'd taken me in back when I was 5, with all that paperwork and supposed help from somewhere. But now, at 25, it felt like chains, not charity. I grabbed the keys from the hook by the door, the metal cold against my skin. "Fine. What exactly from the store, Kyle?" "Barbecue chips, root beer, and throw in some candy bars," he rattled off, leaning back deeper into the cushions. "Don't take forever. Fiona and I are watching that new show later," Fiona added. "And hurry with the dry cleaning. I need that dress for tomorrow. If it's wrinkled, it's on you." I stepped out into the crisp air, the door thudding shut behind me, cutting off their casual chatter. The neighborhood stretched out in its usual drab way, cracked sidewalks, chain-link fences leaning like they were tired too. My sneakers scuffed against the pavement as I walked, the morning's humiliation replaying in my head. Marlene's sneers, the forgotten birthday, now this. It fueled a slow burn inside, making each step heavier. Why did they get to lounge while I fetched and carried? They were the real family, with their inside jokes and shared meals where I was just the extra plate. At the store, the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as I loaded the basket, specific brands. Of course, nothing cheap. The cashier, an older guy who knew me by sight, rang it up with a sympathetic nod. "Rough day." "Something like that," I muttered, handing over the cash Marlene had shoved at me earlier. $40 exactly. No room for error. Then to the dry cleaners, where the bell jingled as I pushed open the door. The woman behind the counter handed over Fiona's bag, the plastic crinkling. "All set. No issues." "Thanks," I said, slinging it over my arm with the grocery bags. The walk back felt longer, the weight pulling at my shoulders, mirroring the drag of being their outsider. They'd enjoy the snacks, the clean clothes, without a single thank you, while I faded into the background. When I got home, I nudged the door open with my foot, bags rustling. I'm back. Snacks on the table, dry cleaning too. Kyle ambled in, snatching a soda without a glance. "About time." "What, did you stop for a chat or something?" Fiona followed, inspecting the dress through the plastic. "This better be perfect." "You didn't let it drag on the ground, did you?" I set the bags down, the counter sticky from earlier spills. "No, it's fine. I was careful." Marlene appeared, eyeing the purchases. "How much did you spend? We've got expenses piling up, you know. Can't keep throwing money around like it's nothing." "Under 40, I said, pulling out the receipt. "Here, check it." She scanned it, her lips pursing. "Seems okay, but watch the change next time. We've fed you, housed you, done enough for years. Maybe it's time you thought about standing on your own feet soon." Kyle popped open his drink, fizz hissing. "Yeah, Alara, you're 25. Most people are out by now, paying their own way. We're not a hotel." Fiona hung her dress on the doorframe, smirking. "Totally. Imagine trying to make it without us. Where would you even go?" I turned away, starting to unpack the groceries into the crooked cabinets, the doors hanging uneven. Their words echoed, that entitlement shining through. the way they basked in privileges I scrubbed floors for. The dismissal of my birthday, the errands like I was staff, it all piled on, stirring that silent anger deeper. Marlene's hint about moving out soon twisted the knife, making the air feel thicker. As evening crept in, I retreated to dinner prep, the knife slicing through onions with sharp thwacks. The smells started filling the kitchen, but my mind churned on the injustice. The isolation wrapping tighter. They laughed in the next room, oblivious, while I chopped and stirred, the resentment building like steam under a lid. Harlan was probably napping in his chair upstairs, as usual, leaving me to handle it all. I gripped the handle harder, wondering how much more I could take before something snapped. Out there, Marlene's voice carried faintly. "We can't keep this up forever. Alara needs to go her own way soon. We've done our part." Kyle agreed. "Yeah, let her figure it out. She's not really one of us anyway." The words fueled the fire, my hands trembling as I seasoned the pot. The pressure from the morning had grown, layer by layer, into this quiet fury. I stirred the sauce, the spoon scraping the pan, drawing out the tension as the day wore on. The kitchen smelled of simmering sauce and chopped onions as I finished prepping dinner, the steam rising from the pot making the air even thicker in that cramped space. I stirred the mixture one last time, my hands still shaky from overhearing Marlene's hints about kicking me out, and set the table with the mismatched plates we'd had forever. The resentment from the errands and their casual dismissals burned steady now, but I kept moving, wiping down the counters to avoid thinking too hard. Outside, I heard voices drifting in from the front yard, neighbors stopping by. Probably for one of those impromptu gatherings Marlene liked to host when she felt like showing off. "Alara, get out here!" Marlene called from the living room, her tone sharp and impatient. She was already heading to the door, smoothing her shirt like she was about to perform. "The neighbors are here. Bring some drinks and snacks. Don't make us look bad." I grabbed a tray, loading it with the chips Kyle had demanded earlier, and some glasses of iced tea, the ice clinking as I balanced it carefully. My stomach twisted at the thought of facing people, especially on a day like this, but I stepped out onto the porch where a small group had gathered. Mrs. Jenkins from next door, old Mr. Patel across the street, and a couple others chatting under the fading light. Kyle and Fiona were there too, lounging on the steps, laughing with the guests like everything was perfect. Marlene spotted me and waved me over with a fake smile. "Here she is, our little helper. Alara, serve the drinks, would you? And hurry up about it." I nodded, passing out the glasses, feeling their eyes on me as I moved quietly. "Mrs. Jenkins took hers with a polite thank you, but Marlene jumped in before I could respond. "Oh, don't mind her. She's been lazy all day, dragging her feet on everything. Can you believe it's her birthday and she's still moping around like we owe her something?" The words hit me like a slap right there in front of everyone, and I froze mid-step, the tray wobbling in my hands. Kyle chuckled from the steps. "Yeah, Alara's always like that. Thinks the world revolves around her special day. But hey, we put up with it." Fiona sipped her tea, smirking. "Totally. She's lucky we even remember. Most orphans don't get this kind of setup." Mr. Patel raised an eyebrow, looking uncomfortable. But Marlene plowed on, her voice rising like she was on stage. "You know, we took her in when she was just 5. Nothing but a scrappy little thing with no one else. Saved her from who knows what, streets, institutions, whatever. And this is the thanks we get. Laziness and ingratitude every single day." I set the tray down on the porch railing, my face burning as the neighbors shifted awkwardly. "Marlene, that's not fair," I said quietly, trying to keep my voice steady. "I've been helping all day, the dishes, the errands." "Oh, please," Marlene interrupted, waving her hand dismissively. "Helping? You call that helping? You're always spilling things, taking forever, complaining under your breath. We've given you everything, a home, food, clothes, and you act like it's a burden. If it weren't for us, you'd be nothing, absolutely nothing." Kyle leaned forward, joining in with a grin. "She's right. No roots, no real family. What do you even deserve? Alara? A pat on the back for existing? We could have sent you packing years ago." The injustice of it all surged through me, their brazen cruelty on full display, making me feel smaller than ever. Mrs. Jenkins cleared her throat. "Well, happy birthday anyway, dear. 25's a big one." But Marlene laughed it off. Happy? She doesn't know the meaning. Always sulking, like we haven't bent over backward. I mean, look at this house. We keep it running for everyone, including her. And she repays us by being ungrateful. I bit my lip staring at the ground, the worn porch boards blurring as tears threatened. I do appreciate it, I murmured, but my words got lost in the shuffle. Fiona piped up, her voice sweet but cutting. Appreciate? Then why are you always so slow with everything? Dinner's probably burning right now. Because you're out here arguing. Mr. Patel tried to change the subject. Nice evening, isn't it? Weather's holding up. But Marlene wasn't done, turning to him with a boastful tone. You see what we deal with? We saved her from nothingness, gave her a chance, and this is it. Pure laziness, I tell you. Some people just don't know how good they've got it. Kyle nodded vigorously. Exactly. No background, no connections. She doesn't deserve half of what we've given her. Should be thanking us every day. The neighbors murmured awkwardly, avoiding my eyes, and I felt utterly devalued, like I was on trial for existing. The public berating amplified everything, the years of being their outsider, the forgotten birthday. Now this spectacle. My hands clenched at my sides as Marlene kept going, her cruel nature shining through in every word. Ilara, go check on dinner, she finally said, shooing me away like a stray. And make it good this time. Don't embarrass us further. I turned back inside, the door creaking shut behind me, cutting off their laughter. In the kitchen, I stirred the pot mechanically, the heat from the stove matching the fire in my chest. Their voices filtered through the window, Marlene still boasting about her good deeds, Kyle mocking my lack of roots. It intensified the pain, making me feel like I was drowning in their disdain. Harlan must have heard the commotion from upstairs, but he didn't come down as usual, leaving me to face it alone. I plated the food, the clatter of utensils loud in the quiet, my mind racing with the injustice. How could they parade their cruelty like that in front of everyone? It fueled a deeper anger, priming me for anything to push back. As the group outside wrapped up, Marlene poked her head in. Hurry up in here. We're coming in soon, and it better be perfect. Yes, Marlene, I replied, my voice tight. But inside, the villainy of it all boiled over, making me hope for a way out of this nightmare. The porch cleared out as the last neighbor waved goodbye, their footsteps fading down the cracked sidewalk under the streetlight's dim glow. I gathered the empty glasses and crumpled napkins, stacking them on the tray with hands that felt numb from the day's endless grind. The air had turned cooler, carrying the faint scent of Marlene's cigarette smoke lingering from earlier. Inside, the house was quiet at first, but then I heard Harlan's heavy steps creaking down the stairs. He must have finally roused himself from his upstairs chair after napping through the gathering, coming down to join Marlene in the living room like he often did at night. I slipped past them without a word, heading up to my tiny room at the end of the hall, the door sticking as I pushed it shut behind me. The space was barely bigger than a closet, with a sagging twin bed shoved against one wall and a small window cracked open to let in the night breeze, though it mostly brought in the hum of distant traffic. The bulb overhead flickered when I flipped the switch, casting shadows on the peeling paint and the few faded posters I'd tacked up years ago. I collapsed onto the bed, the thin mattress dipping under my weight, and stared at the ceiling stains from old leaks. The exhaustion hit me all at once, the scrubbing, the errands, the public shaming on the porch. It drained every bit of energy I had left. My birthday, what a joke. It ended just like it started, with me feeling invisible and worthless. I tried to block it out, pulling the worn blanket over me, but the voices from downstairs seeped up through the thin floorboards, muffled but clear enough near the old heating vent by my feet. Marlene and Harlan were talking low, probably thinking I was already asleep. I shifted closer, pressing my ear to the grate, my heart picking up as their words filtered through. You handled those neighbors well, Harlan said, his voice rough from years of smoking, the kind that made him cough every morning. Made us look like saints for putting up with her all this time. Marlene laughed, a short, bitter sound. Saints? We did what we had to. Taking her in back when she was 5 with all that help we got, it kept things afloat. Those checks when she was younger helped pay the bills. Got Kyle and Fiona through school without us scraping bottom. We gave her the basics, scraps really, and now she's still hanging around like we owe her. I held my breath, the words slicing deep. It wasn't just random cruelty. They'd calculated it, using whatever came with fostering me to benefit themselves while I got the leftovers. My hands clenched the blanket, nails digging into the fabric. Harlan grunted in agreement. Yeah, that extra bit back then was a lifesaver. Covered the mortgage a few times when work was slow. But she's 25 now, no more reason to keep her. We've squeezed out what we could. Time to tell her to pack up and go. Exactly, Marlene replied, her tone smug. We've fed her, housed her long enough. No point in dragging it out. She's not our blood, she's just been convenient. I'll drop the hint stronger tomorrow, make her see she's on her way out. Their chairs creaked as they shifted, and I heard the clink of a bottle, probably Harlan grabbing a beer from the mini fridge they kept down there. The realization settled over me like a heavy fog. All those years of belittling, the chores, the isolation. It was exploitation wrapped in control, not some twisted charity. They'd profited off my presence when I was a kid, and now I was disposable. I rolled onto my side, curling up tighter, the room feeling even smaller, like the walls were pressing in. Kyle's voice drifted in faintly from the hallway below, probably heading to his room. You guys still up? That porch bit with Alara was gold. She looked crushed. Fiona chimed in from somewhere nearby, her laugh light. Right? And she thinks today's special. Pathetic. Marlene shushed them. Quiet down. But yeah, she's had her run here. We've done plenty, clothed her through the rough patches, kept her out of worse spots. No more freebies. Harlan added, agreed, let her figure life out on her own. We're done carrying. I pulled away from the vent, my chest tight, tears stinging my eyes as I wiped them roughly. The oppression felt total, like chains I couldn't break, cornered in this tiny space with no escape. How had I not seen it before? The emotional drain left me hollow, staring into the dark, wondering if this was all there was, endless dismissal, no real place to call home. It pushed me to the edge of despair, making everything seem hopeless. But even in that low, a small spark flickered inside, a quiet urgency bubbling up, whispering that something had to change. I couldn't stay like this forever. I lay there, listening to the house settle into silence, the weight of it all pressing down, but that tiny flame refused to die out completely. I stayed curled up on that sagging bed for what seemed like forever after pulling away from the vent, the blanket rough against my skin and the room's chill seeping in through the cracked window. The despair from their words downstairs clung to me, making my chest feel heavy, like I couldn't breathe right in this tiny space. But then, out of nowhere, a faint memory flickered in my mind. A hazy flash of a bigger house with sunlight pouring through tall windows. A gentle voice calling a name that didn't sound like Alara, maybe something softer, from before they took me in at 5. It was blurry, uncertain, like a dream I couldn't grab hold of, but it stirred something deep inside. Enough was enough. I wasn't going to lie here and let them erase me anymore. I'd find out what that memory meant. Uncover whatever past they'd kept hidden and turn this whole mess around. I sat up slowly, the mattress creaking under me, and reached for the old laptop on my dresser, the one Kyle had tossed aside years ago with its scratch screen and sticky keys. My hands were steady now, that burning resolve pushing out the hopelessness as I flipped it open and waited for the fan to whir to life in the dim light from the bulb. Downstairs, Marlene's voice floated up through the floorboards again, smug and low, like she was wrapping up the night with Harlan. See, I told you, she's probably up there sniveling, thinking she'll guilt us into keeping her. Marlene said, her tone dripping with confidence, but we've got this locked down. She's weak, always has been, no fight in her. Harlan mumbled something, his voice gravelly. Yeah, she'll fold. We've held the reins this long. What's she gonna do? Cry her way out? We're set. She'll be gone before she knows it. Their words hit like fuel on a fire, making my jaw tighten as I typed my first search. How to request birth records. The results loaded slow on our spotty internet, but I scanned them quick. Government sites explaining forms to fill out, fees to pay, how to apply for copies if you had basic info like date and place. Nothing jumped out as a match for me, just general steps. but I bookmarked a couple pages anyway, jotting notes on a scrap of paper from my drawer. Need ID, proof of relation, check state laws. Marlene laughed downstairs, sharp and satisfied. Imagine her trying to make it out there, no one to lean on, no skills we didn't beat out of her. We've played this perfect. She's trapped. Trapped, huh? Harlan echoed, chuckling. We've done enough carrying. Time she learns the hard way. Oh, I ignored the sting, focusing on the screen as I searched next. How to access adoption or foster case files. More sites popped up. Advice on sealed records. How some states let you petition courts for info if you're over 18. But it warned about red tape and waiting times. Generic stuff, no quick answers. But one link led to a forum where people shared stories of digging up old files. I saved a screenshot of the key steps, adding to my notes, court petition, need lawyer, start with agency name. The arrogance in their voices kept drifting up, pushing me harder. Kyle and Fiona get it, they know we're the ones in control, Marlene went on. Alara, she's just filler. We'll tell her straight tomorrow, pack up, get out. She won't push back. Believes every word we say about her being nothing. Harlan agreed, his chair creaking as he shifted. Nothing, yeah. We've made sure she thinks that. No family, no roots, our story sticks. I typed faster, searching how to find missing persons news archives. Old newspaper databases came up, some free trials for scanning past articles. I tried a query with the year I was 5, our state, missing child, or foster mix-up. A few broad hits appeared. Stories about hospital errors or family separations from 2 decades ago. Nothing pinpointing me. But one article about a kid lost in paperwork loosely resonated, describing a search that went cold. The details were vague, no names that matched, but it echoed that hazy memory of a different house. I bookmarked the link, noting, search more archives tomorrow. Try keywords like lost daughter 2005 or similar. Their smug talk downstairs grated on me, but it only sharpened my focus. What if she tries something? Harlan asked, half joking. Marlene snorted. Tries what? She's got no backbone. We've broken that out of her years ago. This house is ours. She's just been along for the ride. I leaned back against the wall, the laptop's warmth on my lap contrasting the cold room, and made a quick list on the paper. Tomorrow, during errands, sneak more searches on my phone if the laptop's too risky. Look for any old papers in the attic or Marlene's desk, maybe that agency name from when I arrived. And think about who might help later, like that neighbor, Mrs. Jenkins, who sometimes gives me pitying looks. No rushing, but no stopping now. The resolve burned steady, controlled, like a fire I could stoke without letting it rage yet. I closed the laptop quietly, sliding it under the bed in its usual spot behind a box of old clothes to keep it hidden. The house was settling into full quiet. Just the occasional creak of settling wood and distant cars outside. I slipped back under the blanket, turning off the light, but sleep didn't come easy. My mind raced with the plan, that faint memory teasing at the edges. Determination keeping me wide awake in the dark. Downstairs, Marlene's voice faded as she and Harlan headed to bed, their footsteps thumping softly. Night's done. Tomorrow we start pushing her out for real, she said, all triumph. Harlan yawned. She won't see it coming, weak as ever. But I wasn't weak anymore. I decided this was my strike back, starting small but building. Tomorrow I'd dig deeper, piece by piece, until their hold cracked. The uncertainty of that memory lingered, hazy and pulling me forward. But for the first time, it felt like a weapon, not a wound. I stared at the ceiling shadows, planning my next moves. The burning inside me far from despair now. The next morning came too soon, sunlight sneaking through the thin curtains in my tiny room, pulling me out of that restless sleep where my mind had replayed the hazy memory and my late night searches over and over. I sat up, rubbing my eyes, the scrap of paper with my notes still clutched in my hand. Bookmarks for birth records, foster files, and those old news archives. My resolve hadn't faded. If anything, it felt sharper, like a plan taking shape. I hid the laptop back under the bed, smoothed the blanket, and headed downstairs. The stairs creaking under my feet as the smells of coffee and toast hit me from the kitchen. Marlene was already there, stirring her mug with that same smug look from last night, her robe tied loose like she owned the world. "Morning, Alara. Sleep okay?" You look tired, probably from all that moping. Get breakfast started. Kyle and Fiona will be down soon, and Harlan's got work early. I nodded, keeping my face neutral as I grabbed the eggs from the fridge, cracking them into a bowl. Sure, Marlene, anything specific? She sipped her coffee, eyeing me over the rim. Just the usual, and don't burn the toast this time. We've got a busy day, errands for me later, so you'll handle them. Harlan shuffled in then, his hair messy from sleep, grabbing a seat at the table. Yeah, and make it quick. I heard you moving around last night. What, couldn't sleep because of your big birthday letdown? I whisked the eggs harder, the fork clinking against the bowl. Something like that, just thinking. Marlene laughed lightly. Thinking? About what, your future? Well, like I said, it's time you started planning one outside this house. We've done enough over the years. Kyle wandered in, yawning, his phone in hand. What's for breakfast? And yeah, Alara, you should think about moving on. This place isn't a charity forever. Fiona followed, tying her hair back. Totally, we need the space. Make my eggs scrambled, no yolks. I plated the food as they sat down, serving them first like always, my mind already on my plan. While they ate and chatted about their day, Kyle's job hunt, Fiona's shopping plans, I cleared the table quietly, slipping out to run errands as Marlene handed me a list. Groceries, post office, pharmacy, pickup. Be back by noon, she said, waving me off, and don't dawdle. We got standards here. Harlan nodded from his chair. Standards, yeah, don't forget that. I stepped outside, the door clicking shut, and pulled out my phone as I walked to the store, the morning air crisp against my skin. First stop, the grocery list, but in between aisles, I opened the browser, pulling up those bookmarked sites from last night. I searched deeper on accessing sealed foster records, finding more details, how to request non-identifying info first, like basic case summaries without names. No instant hits, but I noted the forms I'd need. State Department contact, maybe a small fee. At the post office, while waiting in line, I dug into the news archives again, refining the query with child separation cases 2005 and our town. A few articles loaded, stories of mix-ups in foster placements, one mentioning a hospital error where records got swapped, leading to a kid ending up in the wrong home. It resonated with that hazy memory of a bigger house, but no specifics matched me yet. I screenshot the article, saving it to a hidden folder on my phone. Back home with the bags, I unpacked quickly as Marlene inspected. Took you long enough. Any change? Here, I said, handing her the receipt and coins. All accounted for. She pocketed it, satisfied. Good. Now lunch prep. Harlan's home soon. While chopping vegetables in the kitchen, I heard them in the living room. Marlene and Harlan discussing bills, their voices low but carrying. That old aide from when Alara was little helped, but now, she's costing us, Marlene said. Harlan agreed. Costing, yeah, time to cut ties. It pushed me to sneak upstairs during a break, pretending to fold laundry. In my room, I pulled out the laptop again, searching birth certificate discrepancies. Results pointed to how to order originals versus amended ones for adoptions. I bookmarked a government portal, noting I'd need to mail a request with ID, something to do tomorrow maybe. But then, while putting away clothes in the hall closet, I spotted a dusty box in the back. Old papers Marlene had shoved there years ago. I glanced down the stairs. No one around. I pulled it out quietly, rifling through tax forms, bills, and there, a misplaced envelope with my name on it, yellowed from age. Inside, a birth certificate copy. But the family name listed wasn't Voss. It was something like Thorne, partially smudged, and the parents' names blurred, but not matching Marlene or Harlan. My heart raced. It hinted at a different family, maybe a mix-up like those articles said. I snapped a photo with my phone, tucking the box back just as Fiona called up. Alara, where's lunch? Coming, I yelled, sliding the phone away. Downstairs, I served them, my mind buzzing with the clue. After lunch, while they napped or scrolled on phones, I excused myself to clean the attic, a chore Marlene always nagged about. Up there, amid the cobwebs and old furniture, I found another gem. An old letter tucked in a forgotten file cabinet from a lawyer dated 15 years ago, mentioning a search for a missing child with details that vaguely fit me. Age 5. Separated due to record errors. No full names, but it pieced with the birth certificate hint I was from somewhere else. Maybe a better family lost in the system. I photographed that too, my hands steady now. This was shifting things. These clues challenged their orphan story, but I needed more. Seeking a breather, I stepped outside, spotting Mrs. Jenkins watering her plants next door. She'd noticed my rough treatment over the years, giving me sympathetic smiles. "Hey, Alara, how was your birthday?" she asked, leaning over the fence. I hesitated, then leaned in. "Not great." "Hey, do you remember when I first came here? Anything odd about the paperwork or visitors?" She thought a moment, wiping her hands. "Well, there was that lawyer sniffing around years ago asking about a missing kid." Marlene shooed him away quick, said it was a mistake. "Why?" "Just curious," I said, smiling faintly. "Thanks." She nodded. "If you need to talk, I'm here. You've put up with a lot." Back inside, I gathered my initial evidence on the phone, photos of the birth certificate and letter, screenshots of articles and record request steps. It built momentum. I had clues of a separation from a different family due to a mix-up. While Marlene barked orders from the couch, "Alara, vacuum the living room." I complied, but inside the balance was tipping. Kyle smirked as I plugged in the vacuum. "Still slaving away? Better get used to it elsewhere soon?" Fiona added from her spot. "Yeah, we're upgrading once you're gone." Marlene chuckled. "Upgrading, yes, we've earned it after all these years." Harlan, reading the paper, grunted. "Earned it." Their words didn't sting as much now, they fueled me. By evening, as I prepped dinner, I planned next steps. Mail that record request tomorrow, search more archives for Thorne family links. This turning point felt real. The evidence gathering was shifting everything toward reversal. The morning after my attic find dawned gray and heavy, the kind of light that seeped through the dirty kitchen windows and made everything feel more run down than usual. I got up early, stashing my phone under the mattress with that password-protected folder holding the photos of the smudged birth certificate hinting at Thorne and the old lawyer letter about a missing child. Search. My heart still raced from piecing those clues together, but I kept my face blank as I headed downstairs to start breakfast, the stairs groaning like they always did. Marlene was already at the table nursing her coffee, her eyes flicking over a magazine while Harlan rummaged in the fridge for milk. Kyle and Fiona weren't up yet, but I knew they'd stumble in soon, demanding their plates. "Morning, Alara," Marlene said without looking up, her voice flat. "Eggs over easy for me today. And don't skimp on the butter. Last time they were dry." I nodded, grabbing the pan from the cabinet, the handle sticky from yesterday's grease. "Got it. Coffee refills for anyone?" Harlan sat down heavily, splashing milk into his bowl of cereal. "Yeah, pour me some." "You look like you didn't sleep. What, still hung up on that birthday nonsense?" I filled his mug, keeping my tone light. "Just a long night. Thinking about old times, I guess." Marlene flipped a page harder than needed. "Old times. Focus on the now. We've got chores piling up, and you're not pulling your weight like you used to." Kyle shuffled in then, hair messed up, grabbing a chair. "What's cooking? Make mine scrambled." "And yeah, Alara, snap out of whatever funk you're in." Fiona followed, yawning as she scrolled her phone. "Omelet for me. No onions." "You're spacing out again. Get moving." I cracked the eggs, whisking them as they settled in, their casual orders grating but not breaking my focus. After serving and clearing my own quick bite, I excused myself to fold laundry upstairs, slipping into my room instead. The door clicked shut and I pulled out the laptop, sitting on the bed with the fan whirring softly. I searched for a reputable family search agency, finding one that handled lost records and mix-ups with a secure online form. I filled it out anonymously, using a throwaway email, attaching the photos of the birth certificate and lawyer letter with minimal details, my approximate age at placement, the state, and a note about possible record errors. "Looking for any leads on original family," I typed, hitting submit before anyone could knock. The confirmation popped up. "Inquiry received. Will review and respond within 24 to 48 hours. Please provide more identifiers if available, such as full birth details or witnesses." No big reveals, just a start, but it felt like my first real move. Done in secret while they thought I was folding socks. Later that afternoon, after running Marlene's errands, picking up dry cleaning and groceries, I unpacked in the kitchen while she hovered, checking the bags. "You get the right brand of detergent? Last time you messed it up." Yeah, it's here, I said, stacking the boxes. I paused, folding a towel from the load I'd actually done earlier. Hey, Marlene, do you remember the name of the foster agency that placed me here? I mean, when I was 5, was there ever talk of a mix-up in the paperwork or something? She stopped midway through opening a package, her fingers tightening on the wrapper. Why bring that up now? It's been years. It was the state child services, standard stuff. No mix-ups that I recall. I kept folding, glancing at her casually, just wondering. I saw some old envelope while cleaning and it made me think, no big deal if you don't remember. Marlene set the package down a bit too hard, her mouth thinning. Well, don't go stirring up old nonsense. Everything was fine, we signed the papers, took you in. End of story. Kyle walked through, grabbing a snack. What's this about? Alara playing detective? Nothing, Marlene snapped, shooting me a look. She's just asking pointless questions. Get back to work, Alara. I nodded, backing off with the towel in hand. Okay, sorry, didn't mean to bother you. Why, but I saw it. The defensiveness in her eyes, the quick denial. It was subtle, but her unease was there, like I'd poked a nerve without showing my cards. As evening approached, with dinner prep underway and the family scattered, Kyle on the couch with his phone, Fiona upstairs, Harlan reading in his chair, I took my chance. Marlene stepped out to the yard for a smoke, and I slipped into the small home office off the living room, the door half open for a quick escape. The desk was cluttered with bills and junk mail, but in the bottom drawer, I found a faded folder labeled with a child services ID number that matched the one on my old papers. Inside, an old benefits award notice from the State Department, dated around when I arrived, mentioning support for foster care without specifics, and a caseworker letter renewing placement with a note about allocated funds. Nothing screamed fraud, but the dates and agency descriptors hinted at money coming in for my care that I'd never seen the benefits of. Scraps for me, while they lived better. I snapped quick photos of the notice and letter with my phone, my hands steady but pulse racing, tucking everything back exactly as it was before sliding out. Harlan shifted in his chair nearby but didn't look up. Back in the kitchen, I added the images to my hidden folder, starting a rough file. The birth certificate, lawyer letter, and now these admin pieces suggesting financial support tied to me. My phone buzzed softly as I stirred the pot. A follow-up from the agency. Thanks for the attachments. Preliminary scan shows possible inconsistencies in records. Send any additional identifiers like full original name or location details for deeper search. Vague, no bombshells, but it ramped up the tension inside me, confirming I was on a path. During dinner, Marlene picked at her food, her eyes darting to me now and then. Pass the bread, Alara, and quit looking so smug. What's with you today? Nothing, I said, handing it over. Just getting through the day. Kyle chewed loudly. Yeah, well, don't get comfy. Things change soon. Fiona smirked. Totally, more room for us. Harlan nodded. Room, yeah. Marlene stayed quiet, but I caught her watching me closer, that crack in her facade growing. I cleared the plates after, retreating upstairs to review my file in the dark. The power was shifting, even if just in my hands, no public leverage yet, but the suspense built as I planned to keep quiet, waiting for the agency's next nudge or more clues. Her unease told me I was onto something, and I wouldn't overplay until the moment was right. 3 days after I sent those extra details to the agency, the clear date of birth from the birth certificate and the county where the foster placement happened, I sat on my bed in the tiny room, the afternoon light filtering through the dusty curtains as I refreshed my throwaway email on the hoist laptop. My fingers tapped the edge of the keyboard, the fan humming softly while I waited, the house quiet except for the distant clatter of Marlene in the kitchen downstairs. The response finally loaded, and I read it twice to make sure. Preliminary review shows a likely match to the Thorn. Missing child case from 2005 based on the DOB and county details provided. Media reports describe the Thorns as affluent parents who lost their daughter in a record mix-up. We recommend submitting additional identifiers like hospital name or case ID for further verification and consider a DNA test or official vital records request to confirm. It wasn't ironclad, but it aligned everything, the smudged surname, the lawyer letter about a search, and pointed strongly to me not being the orphan they'd always claimed. I closed the laptop quick, my chest tight with that mix of nerves and determination, and slipped out for an errand to the library down the street, telling Marlene I needed to pick up some cleaning supplies on the way back. The library was musty, with the hum of old computers and a few people typing away, and I printed the email on their machine, folding it into my pocket along with copies of the birth certificate photo and the lawyer letter. No full bombshell yet, but enough to rattle them at dinner tonight when they'd all be there, thinking it was just another meal where they could push me around. I grabbed the supplies to cover my tracks and headed home, the papers burning a hole in my jeans as I walked the cracked sidewalk. Back in the kitchen, I started prepping the roast, the oven clicking on as I seasoned the meat, the smell starting to fill the cramped space with its peeling cabinets and worn counters. Marlene poked her head in, arms crossed like always. "Make sure it's not dry this time, Alara. Harlan hates when it's tough. And set the table nice. Kyle's bringing home some news about a job interview." I nodded, slicing potatoes with steady hands. "Will do. Everyone eating together." She huffed. "Yeah, Fiona's off work early. Don't mess it up." Harlan got home first, kicking off his shoes by the door and slumping into his chair in the living room, the TV flickering onto some game show. "Smells decent in there, Alara. Better be ready soon, I'm beat from the day." Kyle came in next, tossing his keys on the counter. "Hey, make my portion big." Interview went okay, but I'm starving. Fiona arrived last, dropping her bag and sliding into a seat at the table. "This better be good." My shift was endless. I served the plates, the steam rising as I sat at the end like usual, picking at my food while they dug in. The conversation started light. Kyle bragging about his interview, Fiona complaining about a coworker, Harlan grunting approvals, Marlene nodding along. I waited until they were halfway through, my fork down, before I spoke up. "I have something important to talk about. It's about my past, the foster placement." Harlan paused, his knife midway through cutting. "What? Again?" "We went over this." "Let it go, Alara." "We're eating." Kyle shoveled a bite. "Yeah, no one wants to hear your theories mid-dinner." Fiona rolled her eyes. "Seriously, save the drama for later." Marlene set her glass down a bit hard. "If it's more of your questions, it can wait. Pass the gravy." I reached into my pocket, pulling out the folded papers and laying them flat on the table, next to the salt shaker. "It's not questions. Look at this, my birth certificate copy, with a last name that looks like Thorne, not Voss, and the DOB and county details. And this old lawyer letter mentioning a search for a missing child that matches my age, and the timing of when I came here." Marlene's hand froze, reaching for the documents, her face going a shade paler as she glanced at them. "Where did you find these? I told you to stop digging through stuff. It's probably a mistake, old papers mixed up." I pointed to the printed email. "Not a mistake. I sent these to a family search agency, and their preliminary response says it aligns with a Thorne missing child case from 2005, a kid lost in a record error. Media back then described the Thornes as affluent parents searching for their daughter. They asked for more like a hospital name or case ID and suggested DNA or vital records to confirm, but it strongly suggests I'm not the orphan you always said I was." Harlan leaned forward, squinting at the email. "This is nonsense. Agencies mess up all the time. You're twisting some old story to fit you. We took you in fair and square." Kyle pushed the papers away. "Twisting? This looks faked. You think you're some lost rich kid now? Give me a break." Fiona snatched the birth certificate photo. "Yeah, this surname's smudged. Who knows what it really says? Mom, tell her she's delusional." Marlene grabbed the email next, her fingers trembling just a bit as she read, though she tried to hide it by straightening her back. "This doesn't prove a thing. Likely match? That's not confirmation. We went through the proper channels. State Services placed you here. You're making trouble over nothing." I kept my voice even, folding my arms. "It's not nothing. And look at this benefits notice and caseworker letter from back then. Support tied to my placement existed, funds allocated for a foster kid like me. But I got scraps while everyone else benefited." Harlan slapped the table lightly. "Benefited? That stuff helped the whole house. You're gaslighting us now, trying to turn us into villains because you're bitter." Kyle nodded. "Bitter, yeah. This is your way of fighting back before we kick you out. Won't work. Fiona crossed her arms. Exactly. Drop it, or things get worse for you here. Marlene stood up slowly, collecting the papers with over-controlled movements, her pallor still there under the kitchen light. Enough of this. We'll look into it ourselves, call whoever we need to shut this down. You're not turning this family upside down with some half-baked story. I gathered my copies back, staying seated. It's not half-baked. It points to me being that missing Thorne daughter, not your charity case. The truth's starting to come out. The room fell into a tense silence after that, forks scraping slower, no one meeting my eyes fully. They finished eating without another word on it, pushing plates away and heading off. Kyle to his room muttering, Fiona grabbing her phone and storming upstairs, Harlan flipping on the TV louder than needed. Marlene lingered by the sink as I cleared, cornering me with a low voice. You think stirring this up changes anything? It's not over, Alara. We'll sort it and prove you wrong. I rinsed a plate under the faucet, looking her straight in the eye. It changes everything. The facade's cracking, and there's more where that came from. A few days after that tense dinner, where I laid out the preliminary agency email in those old papers, the house felt like a pressure cooker ready to blow. Marlene watched me like a hawk during every chore, following me from the kitchen to the laundry room, her footsteps echoing behind mine as I folded towels or wiped counters. Don't think your little stunt changes anything, Alara, she muttered once while I scrubbed the sink, her breath hot on my neck. We're family, you start trouble, it comes back on you. Harlan stayed glued to his chair, grumbling louder about bills. And Kyle and Fiona blasted their music upstairs, slamming doors whenever I passed by. I kept my cool, smiling faintly during meals, but inside, I was building my case stronger, waiting for the right moment to drop it all. During one of Marlene's rare outings to the store, I slipped into the home office again, the door creaking as I pushed it open just enough to squeeze through. The desk drawer stuck a bit, but I pried it free, rifling through the folder with that child services ID number. There, a benefits payment history letter from the State Department, listing disbursements tied to my placement dates over the years, with amounts that added up to thousands. Next to it, a single bank statement page from 15 years back showed deposits with descriptors like state, Dept Human SVCS Foster Alok, matching those exact dates and sums. And Marlene's handwritten ledger notes in the same file cross-referenced them against household, buys like Kyle's new bike or Fiona's clothes, none of it marked for my needs. I snapped photos of all three with my phone, my hands steady despite the adrenaline, then tucked everything back precisely as it was. I emailed the copies to a secure cloud account I'd set up at the library yesterday, along with backups of the birth certificate photo, lawyer letter, benefits notice, and caseworker renewal. No way they'd grab it all if things got ugly. Then, while the house was still quiet, I stepped outside to the yard, spotting Mrs. Jenkins tending her flowers over the fence. Hey, Mrs. Jenkins, I called softly, glancing back at the door. Remember that lawyer you mentioned? Could you write down what you saw? Him asking about a missing girl from a well-off family? Marlene shooing him away? She set down her trowel, wiping her hands on her apron. Of course, dear. I've seen how they've treated you. It's not right. Give me a minute. She went inside and came back with a handwritten note on notebook paper. I witnessed a lawyer visit the house about 10 years ago, inquiring about a missing child case matching Alara's age and description. Marlene claimed wrong address and sent him off quickly. She signed it with her full name and date. I thanked her, folding it into my pocket. If investigators call, you'll confirm? She nodded. Absolutely. You deserve the truth. Back inside, I added a photo of her statement to my file, then sat at my laptop to email the agency one last identifier, a partial case ID from the lawyer letter header that matched the county on the birth certificate. Their reply pinged within hours. New case ID bolsters the likely match to the 2005 Thorns. Disappearance. Public records note the Thorns as affluent with persistent searches. Advise official vital records or DNA for confirmation, and consider reporting to authorities for identity and welfare review. It was time I opened my phone to the State Child Services fraud hotline site, filling out the online report form with details of the suspected misuse, the payment history, bank descriptors, ledger mismatches, and my forged orphan status. I attached anonymized photo snippets as evidence, hitting submit. A confirmation email arrived minutes later with a case number and a note that an investigator would contact me within 48 hours for a callback. That evening, as I prepped dinner, the smells of boiling pasta and sauce filling the kitchen, Marlene burst in earlier than usual, her eyes scanning the room like she sensed something off. "What have you been up to today, Alara? I saw you out talking to that nosy neighbor again." Harlan shuffled in behind her, dropping his keys loudly on the counter. "Talking? About us?" I stirred the sauce, keeping my back to them at first. "Just catching up. But since you ask, I have updates on my past. The agency said the new case ID strengthens the likely match to that Thorne missing child case, the affluent family from the 2005 media reports." Kyle stormed in from the living room, phone in hand. "Updates? You're still on this crap? Give it up." Fiona followed, crossing her arms by the table. "Yeah, stop harassing us with your fantasies." Marlene stepped closer, her face reddening. "Fantasies, show me this so-called update. Hand over your phone now." I turned, pocketing it deeper. "Not fantasies. And I found more in your office folder. A benefits payment history letter listing state disbursements for my placement. A bank statement with matching state debt human SVCS deposits, and your ledger notes tallying them against stuff for Kyle and Fiona, not me. It shows years of exploitation, taking money meant for my care while giving me scraps." Harlan lunged forward, his hand outstretched. "Exploitation? That's our private papers. You stole them. Give me the phone or I'll take it." Kyle moved to block the door. "Stealing, yeah. Hand it over before you make things worse." Fiona sneered. "Worse? We'll tell everyone you're unstable, making up lies to hurt us." Marlene reached for my arm, her grip tight. "Unstable's right. We'll call the cops ourselves, say you're delusional. Now give it, we'll delete whatever garbage you've cooked up." I twisted away, backing toward the stairs. Delusional? Try it. But I already backed everything up to the cloud, agency emails, all the documents, even Mrs. Jenkins' written statement confirming the lawyer visit. And I filed a report with the State Child Services Fraud Hotline this afternoon. An investigator's calling back soon to look into the misuse and my identity docs. Marlene's hand dropped, her face paling as she stumbled back against the counter. "A report? You involved outsiders? This is a mistake. We'll explain it away. Say it's family matters." Harlan's fists clenched. "Mistake? We'll fight it. Tell them you're lying for attention." Kyle punched the wall lightly. "Lying, yeah, you won't win this." Fiona's voice cracked. "Win! Mom, fix this." I stood firm, my voice steady. "Explain what? The paper trail? The agency's likely match? Mrs. Jenkins' statement? My evidence overpowers your lies. The process is started. They'll investigate the exploitation and confirm I'm not the orphan you claimed." Marlene tried one last grab for my sleeve, but I pulled free, heading up the stairs. "This isn't over, Alara. We'll turn it around, call our own people, make you regret reporting." Harlan yelled after me. "Regret it!" Kyle and Fiona echoed. "Big regret." I locked my door, sitting on the bed as their voices argued downstairs. Marlene hissing at Harlan to handle the mess, Kyle suggesting they change the locks, Fiona whining about cops showing up. My preparation dominated, the hard documents and official reports setting up the imminent showdown, with the wheels of justice already turning. The week after I filed that report dragged on in a suffocating haze, the house turning into a battlefield of glares and whispers that made every room feel like a trap. Marlene shadowed me during chores, her eyes boring into my back as I washed dishes or folded laundry, hissing things like, "You think starting this war makes you smart, we'll spin it so you look like the ungrateful liar." I kept my responses short, nodding while I double-checked my cloud backups on the laptop in stolen moments upstairs, making sure the full file, agency emails, birth certificate photo, lawyer letter, benefits, payment history, bank statement with those State Department deposits, ledger notes, and Mrs. Jenkins' statement was safe and duplicated. Harlan spent his evenings in the living room barking at the TV to cover the silence, while Kyle and Fiona slammed doors and muttered about how you're ruining everything for us. I stayed cautious, locking my door at night and avoiding being alone with them, the strain building like a storm ready to break. The callback from Miss Rivera came on day 3, her voice steady over the phone as I hid in the bathroom with the fan running to muffle the sound. "Alara, we've opened the investigation under case," she said. "The financial docs you sent suggest misuse of foster funds during your minor years, embezzlement tied to state allocations for your care as a child. We'll need a phone interview now and an in-person meeting soon." I walked her through it all again, detailing how the payments matched my placement but went to their luxuries while I got hand-me-downs and chores, the mistreatment leaving me isolated and overworked from age 5 to 18. She noted everything, then added, "Send any updates on the identity side. We'll request vital records cross-check from the state." I forwarded the latest agency email right after, the one bolstering the likely thorn match with the case ID from the lawyer letter. Over the next 2 weeks, the process ramped up slowly but relentlessly, starting with voluntary record requests that Marlene tried to dodge. She slammed the door on the initial investigator who showed up for interviews, claiming family emergency and refusing to hand over files. "This is harassment," she snapped through the crack in the door. "Alara's unstable, she made it all up." Harlan backed her from inside, yelling, "Unstable? Yes, get off our property." Kyle and Fiona watched from the window, their faces twisted in worry. But Ms. Rivera called me later that day. Their obstruction escalated things. "We've got a warrant now for the records and an audit of the financials." I met her at a neutral spot downtown for my in-person interview. Bringing printed backups and going over the mistreatment details again, the emotional neglect, the unpaid labor as a kid, the funds diverted while I went without basics during my foster years. The warrant execution hit a week later, on a rainy afternoon when the whole family was home. I opened the door to Ms. Rivera and a detective partner, badges out with a small team behind them. "We have a court order to seize relevant documents and devices," the detective said, handing Marlene the paper as she blocked the entry. Her hands shook as she read it. "You can't do this, it's our private stuff." Harlan grabbed her arm, pulling her back. "Private? This is an invasion." Kyle tried to slip toward the office. "Invasion, yeah, don't touch our computer." Fiona hovered nearby, phone out like she might record. "Stop them, Mom." But the team moved in methodically, boxing up the office files, the computer, even some old ledgers from the drawer. Neighbors peeked from curtains across the street, whispering as the rain pattered on the vans outside. Marlene followed them around, protesting every box. "Those are old, nothing to do with her. We use the money for the house, not just her." The detective stayed calm. "The audit will sort it. Obstructing now could add charges." As they left, Ms. Rivera pulled me aside on the porch. "Vital records cross-check came back. Your birth details match the Thorne case file. We're coordinating a DNA swab for final confirmation, but it's looking solid. They'll be notified officially soon." The swab happened the next day at a clinic, quick and painless, with results promised in a week. Meanwhile, the audit wrapped fast. The state confirmed the embezzlement, tying the deposits and ledgers to foster funds meant for my minor care, diverted over 13 years while I endured the neglect. Charges dropped 2 weeks later, fraud and embezzlement for Marlene and Harlan, plus child endangerment for the mistreatment during my foster years. Police showed up at dawn with arrest warrants, cuffing them in the living room as Kyle and Fiona watched in shock. "You're under arrest for embezzlement of state funds, falsifying placement documents, and endangering a minor," the officer read, leading them out to the squad cars parked blatantly on the street. Neighbors gawked from doorways, phones out recording the humiliation. Marlene twisted back toward me. "This is your doing. You'll regret destroying us." Harlan hung his head, muttering, "Destroyed, yes." Kyle yelled from the porch, "Regret it." Fiona sobbed, "How could you?" The state started asset recovery that same week, seizing their savings and putting a lien on the house to repay the misappropriated funds, thousands they'd pocketed while I suffered. Kyle and Fiona got questioned too, facing probation for knowing about it as adults. their entitlement stripped as the neighborhood buzzed with the scandal. But for me, the real healing came when the DNA results confirmed the match a few days later. Miss Rivera called first. "It's official, you're the Thorns' daughter. They've been notified and are arranging to meet you." The reunion happened that afternoon, the street suddenly alive with black SUVs pulling up. My biological family's security detail, they explained later, due to their high-profile business and the media attention from the old missing child case. My mother, Elena Thorne, stepped out first from the lead vehicle, her face crumpling as she rushed forward and pulled me into a hug that smelled like lavender and felt like safety. "Alara, my baby girl, we've searched every day for 20 years. My father joined, his strong arms wrapping around us both. "We never gave up. You're home now, with love, security, everything you were denied. Damn siblings." I didn't know existed piled out from the other vehicles, 2 brothers and a sister, smiling through tears. "We've got so much to catch up on," my older brother said, squeezing my shoulder. As we drove away in the convoy, leaving the crumbling foster house behind with Kyle and Fiona staring from the window, their world in ruins, I felt the wounds start to close. Justice had prevailed, the foster family facing trial, losing their ill-gotten gains, humiliated in the community while I embraced a life of belonging, the hidden heritage bringing healing and hope at last. Have you ever felt that the person who hurt you the most is the one you trusted the most? If you've ever experienced being doubted, blamed, or hurt without being able to speak out, leave a "I" comment or briefly tell your story. No one is judging you here. We're just reminding each other of one thing. The truth may come late, but it always finds a way to be revealed. And if you want more stories like this about justice turning around, remember to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next episode. On screen right now, you'll see 2 new stories I think you'll really enjoy. There are many more waiting for you on the channel, so don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss one. See you in the next story. Until then, take care of yourself and the people you love. With all my love and respect.